For our project, we will be talking about film, music, and inclusivity. To narrow it down, we will be talking about Wendy Carlos. For Wendy Carlos' background information, she's an American composer and early experimenter in electronic music. Carlos as a transsexual was known until 1979 as Walter Carlos. She developed a method for creating electronic versions of orchestral sounds. The synthesizer gained recognition as a musical instrument and became the standard for electronic realizations owing to the enormous popularity of Carlos's recording Switched on Bach, an album of music by Johann Sebastian Bach performed on a Moog synthesizer, which helped popularize its use in the 1970s and won her 3 Grammy Awards. She won Album of the Year, Classical, Best Classical Performance, Instrumental Soloist or Soloist, with or without orchestra, and Best Engineered Recording, Classical. Her virtuosity as a performer on the synthesizer and creativity as an arranger are convincingly displayed in her later albums, which include original compositions such as Time Steps, 1970 using the score for the film A Clockwork Orange, 1971, and Pompous Circumstance, 1974 to 1975.
The music styles that were used in A Clockwork Orange include electronic classical, primarily from a synthesizer, of course. At the time, electronic scores were gaining popularity and would become an important part of film scoring within a decade. Adapted scores using popular music seemed to be the most prominent at the time. The special skills or connections that Wendy Carlos had to the film are pretty interesting. Them.us suggests that Carlos's synthesized soundscape in A Clockwork Orange is itself a soundtrack for being trans in the 1970s and even today. Another critic, Don Hackman of the New York Times at the time, wrote, "It was perhaps logical, then, that the music for A Clockwork Orange, a film about a shaped and molded future society, should have been provided by Walter Carlos, a composer who has demonstrated in his remarkable electronic transcriptions of the music of Bach and others an almost sculptor-like gift for the shaping and molding of sound. Carlos's gift is for what might be described as recomposition. It involves using existing music as a starting point for contemporary experiments in coloration, changes of timbre, and a rebalancing of individual parts." It seems almost kismet the way Carlos got involved with A Clockwork Orange. Carlos had just written the opening to her composition Time Steps prior to working on the film or having any knowledge of the film. She later picked up a novel titled A Clockwork Orange and noticed that her composition reflected the feeling of the first few chapters. She then developed the piece into an autonomous composition with an uncanny affinity for clockwork. The last word, of course, being Carlos's way of referring to the book. When the film version was announced, Carlos and producer Rachel Elkind made a demonstration recording for Kubrick, who became interested and invited them to meet him in London. Note, this was during the hardest part of Carlos's life, her transition, in which she underwent several gender-affirming surgeries.
The musical style of The Shining was a classical contemporary style that, at the time this movie came out, TV distribution and video cassette reproduction contributed to a huge increase in percentages for studio earnings, and it outpaced box office profits sometimes. Not only that, the synthesizer became extremely popular at this time for musical scores, so things became more electronic, they became more computer-based, and because of this, it began to be more synthesized or popular songs to be used for musical scores. For Wendy Carlos herself, she recorded a considerable amount of music before the filming process of The Shining. She worked with Stanley Kubrick to only have Kubrick using existing music by many avant-garde composers for the final version of the film. There went up to be 2 tracks in the final version of the film, which would be the main title theme and Rocky Mountains. Those 2 tracks being the only 2 credited to Wendy Carlos. And when it comes to how she got involved with the film, she previously worked on Clockwork Orange with Stanley Kubrick and found the experience a lot of fun and a pleasurable venture. Reuniting with Kubrick, however, like in Clockwork Orange, music was only partially used.
In the early 1980s, electronic scores featuring heavy synthesizer was a popular trend, such as the 1982 movie Blade Runner. There was also a prevailing trend of using popular songs from bands such as the band Journey. Wendy Carlos had the ability to create a score that was a mixture of different genres. In Tron, she uses popular music, orchestral music, as well as original music on different synthesizers. She used her expertise of electronic music and synthesizer to create original music for the film. She worked as a recording engineer and worked along Robert Moog to create the Moog synthesizer. Winning 3 Grammy Awards, she was an accomplished electronic musician and piqued Disney's interest. After Wendy Carlos' very successful score for A Clockwork Orange, the director and co-writer of Tron, Steven Lisberger, insisted on having Carlos score the film. Lisberger states, Wendy's music provides an emotion not anticipated, an eerie resonance that feels right. She wanted to create something different from the popular sci-fi scores at the time, and Lisberger gave her full control and trust.
When watching a small excerpt from one of Wendy Carlos's films, A Clockwork Orange, we're going to be looking for a way that the music transitions the scenes between each other. So you're going to see the group walk into the bar, sit down and enjoy their music and their milk, and they're going to maybe get into a little spat and then see how the music changes based on the new context of the scene. The music is going to shift from diegetic to non-diegetic without you really even realizing it. And then, at the end of the scene, when the main character heads home, you're going to notice that he's whistling the tune of the song last played in the last scene. This is a way that Wendy Carlos transitions from one scene to another using the help of non-diegetic and diegetic music in the scene. As soon as he's done whistling, you notice that the music is more source music, baking up the scene and getting him ready to have his big moment with his Beethoven music.
What did you do that for?
For being a bastard with no manners. Not the duke of an idea how to comport yourself public-wise, oh my brother.
I don't like you should do what you've done. And I'm not your brother no more and wouldn't want to be.
Watch that. Do watch that old dim if to continue to be on live, thou dost wish.
Yarballs. Great bolsy yard blockos to you. I'll meet you with chain or nods or britver any time. Not having you aiming tall chucks at me reasonless. But it stands to reason I won't have it.
A nod scrap any time you say.
Doobie-doo. A bit tired, maybe. Best not to say more. Bed ways is right ways now. So best we go home ways and get a bit of spatchka. Right?
Right.